Bergraster, Section 1. The night the radar lit up. September 5, 1957. Thule Air Base, Greenland. Oro 2 in 17 hours. The Arctic night is absolute. A black void stretching endlessly beyond the floodlit runway. Wind howls across the ice, rattling steel antenna towers and biting through layers of cold weather gear. Inside the radar control building, Captain William H. Anderson, United States Air Force, leans forward in his chair, eyes fixed on the glowing green scope. A low hum fills the room. The steady heartbeat of America's early warning system. Then it happens. A blip. Faint at first, almost nothing. Just a flicker on the outer edge of the screen. Anderson narrows his eyes. He's seen weather returns before. Ice crystals. False echoes. But this one is moving. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from the north. Our radar contact, a sergeant mutters. Bearing 035, range 200 miles. Anderson straightens. His breath fogs the glass. Confirm track. The operator adjusts the gain. The blip sharpens. It's real, and it's headed south. Within seconds, the room snaps to life. Phones are lifted, switches flipped, codes spoken quietly but urgently. Somewhere deep beneath layers of encryption and protocol, a single phrase is transmitted down the chain of command. Unknown aircraft approaching North American airspace. No missiles, no bombs detected, just an aircraft. But in 1957, that is enough, because everyone in that room knows what it might be. The sound that haunted the sky, far above the Arctic Circle, at 35,000 feet, 4 massive turboprop engines claw through the freezing air. Their sound is unmistakable. A deep, rhythmic thunder that carries for miles, vibrating through the thin atmosphere like a mechanical heartbeat. Inside the cockpit, Colonel Sergei Mikhailovich Voronin, long-range aviation, Soviet Air Force, sits calmly in the left seat. His breath is steady. His gloved hands rest lightly on the controls. Ahead of him stretches a vast, indifferent sky. Behind him lies the Soviet Union, and beneath him, America's defenses. The aircraft is enormous. Long swept wings, a narrow fuselage, a glass nose gleaming faintly under moonlight. 8 contra-rotating propellers bite into the air with brutal efficiency. Its NATO reporting name will come later. For now, it is known by its Soviet designation, a Tupolev Tu-95, and tonight, it is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Narration, a world on the edge. The year is 1957. The Cold War is no longer a political standoff. It is a technological arms race measured in minutes, miles, and megatons. Just weeks earlier, the Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik into orbit. A beeping metal sphere no bigger than a beach ball, circling the Earth every 96 minutes. To the public, it was a marvel. To American military planners, it was a warning. If Moscow could put a satellite over the United States, it could put something else there too, something nuclear. The United States has bombers, B-47s, B-52s, stationed across the globe. But bombers are vulnerable. They must cross oceans. They must be detected. They must be stopped. The question haunting Washington is simple. Can America stop a Soviet bomber before it reaches U.S. cities? The Tu-95 exists to test that question. Scramble. Back in Greenland, the phone rings. Then another. At Goose Bay, Labrador. Klaxons erupt across the frozen tarmac. Red lights flash. Pilots sprint from ready rooms into the wind, helmets under their arms. Scramble, unknown contact inbound. Lieutenant James "Red" Callahan, interceptor pilot, doesn't ask questions. He never does. He runs. His boots pound against the concrete as ground crews pull chocks and spin up engines. Within minutes, a pair of F-102 Delta Daggers roar down the runway, afterburners blazing, punching into the night sky. Their mission is clear. Find it, identify it, and if necessary, stop it. The bear reveals itself. At altitude, Colonel Voronin watches the navigation officer adjust his instruments. An American radar is tracking us, the officer says quietly. Voronin nods. He expected nothing less. This flight is not an attack. There are no bombs in the bay tonight, but that doesn't make it harmless, because what the Tu-95 carries instead is something far more valuable. Information. Every mile flown toward North America reveals weaknesses. Radar gaps, response times, interceptor behavior. The Soviet Union is learning how America reacts. How fast, how aggressively, how predictably. And America is learning something too, that this aircraft, propellers and all, can reach them. Bernage, first visual contact. Callahan spots it first. A dark silhouette against the stars. Too big to be a fighter, too steady to be a transport. As he closes in, his radio crackles. Control, this is Red One. I have visual. Repeat, visual contact. The aircraft fills his canopy now. 4 engine nacelles on each wing. Swept tail, glass nose. He swallows. Jesus, he mutters. That thing's huge. He paces it off the left wing. Careful, measured. Soviet markings are clearly visible. The red star stark against bare metal. The Tu-95 does not maneuver. It does not run. It simply flies on. Inside the Soviet cockpit, Voronin glances sideways and allows himself a thin smile. The Americans have arrived. Right on schedule. These were a new kind of fear. This moment, this silent encounter over frozen ocean, will repeat itself hundreds of times over the next decades. Tu-95s probing air defenses near Alaska, off the coast of California, over the North Atlantic, near Japan, near Britain, always just close enough, never crossing the line. Always asking the same question, are you ready? For American commanders, the answer is never fully reassuring, because the Tu-95 should not be this capable. It is loud. It is massive. It is powered by propellers in the age of jets, and yet, it flies farther than expected, higher than planned, longer than almost anything else in the sky. It can carry nuclear weapons powerful enough to erase cities, and it keeps coming back, night after night, year after year. As Callahan's fuel warning light flickers on, the Soviet aircraft finally banks away, turning north, its engines thundering into the darkness. The radar blip fades, the immediate danger passes, but the unease does not. Because tonight, America learned something chilling. The enemy does not need stealth. The enemy does not need speed. It only needs reach, and the Tu-95 has it. The Section 2, the machine behind the fear. October 30th, 1952. Kuibyshev Aircraft Plant, number 18, Soviet Union, 07:42 hours. The factory wakes before the sun. Steel doors groan open as workers stream inside. Boots echoing across concrete floors polished smooth by decades of labor. The air is thick with oil, hot metal, and cigarette smoke. Overhead, cranes creak along their rails, hauling enormous sections of aluminum skin through a forest of scaffolding. At the center of the vast assembly hall sits a machine so large it seems to bend the space around it. A bomber, incomplete, skeletal, unforgiving. This is where the Tu-95 is born, not in the sky, not over radar screens, but here, under arc lights and watchful eyes, in a factory where secrecy is enforced as rigidly as discipline. Oh, Tharbisbourgeois. The demand from the Kremlin, 3 years earlier, in 1949. A single detonation in the Kazakh steppe shattered the American nuclear monopoly. The Soviet Union had the bomb, but possessing a weapon and delivering it are two very different things. In the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Soviet leadership understood a brutal truth. Without a reliable means to strike the continental United States, nuclear parity meant nothing. Joseph Stalin wanted reach, not theoretical reach, not future promises, immediate reach. In February 1951, the order reached the Tupolev Design Bureau. Design a bomber capable of carrying a nuclear payload across intercontinental distances. fast enough, high enough, and reliable enough to reach the United States and return. It was not a suggestion. Failure was not an option. Borisovner Andrei Tupolev's gamble, chief designer. Andrei Nikolaevich Tupolev was no stranger to pressure. He had survived purges, prisons, and political reversals. He knew what happened to men whose designs disappointed the state. Yet, even for him, this requirement bordered on the impossible. Jet engines existed. But early Soviet turbojets were thirsty, unreliable, and short-ranged. They could not yet cross oceans, so Tupolev made a decision that stunned both allies and rivals. He rejected pure jets. Instead, he embraced something older and far more radical. Turboprops. Not ordinary propellers, but the most powerful turboprop engines ever conceived. The Kuznetsov NK-12. Each engine would produce more than 15,000 horsepower, unmatched anywhere in the world. 8 contra-rotating propellers, a roar louder than thunder, efficiency that defied expectations. If it worked, the bomber would fly farther than any jet of its time. If it failed, it would be a national embarrassment, or worse. Building the impossible. Back in plant number 18, rivet guns hammer relentlessly. Sheets of aluminum are shaped, drilled, and fastened by hand. There are no computers here, no simulations, only slide rules, blueprints, and experience bought with blood and failure. A foreman shouts over the din as a wing section is lifted into place. Nearby, a young engineer runs his fingers along a row of rivets, checking spacing by touch alone. He knows the tolerances by heart. One mistake at 35,000 feet is fatal. On an elevated platform, Tupolev himself observes in silence. His face reveals nothing, but those who know him see the tension in his posture. This aircraft is different, larger than anything the Soviet Union has built before, more complex, more dangerous, and more politically loaded than any bomber in history. Misread, first flight. November 12, 1952, Zhukovsky Airfield. 09:58 hours. A cold wind sweeps across the runway as the prototype Tu-95 rolls forward. Observers cover their ears. The engines spool up. The sound is indescribable. A low-frequency pounding that shakes the ground, rattles windows miles away, and seems to vibrate inside the chest. Some engineers exchange nervous glances. If the propeller gearbox fails, it will tear the wing apart. If the vibration resonates, the airframe could disintegrate. The bomber accelerates. Faster, faster. Then, impossibly, it lifts off. For a moment, no one breathes. The aircraft climbs steadily, engines roaring in perfect, terrifying harmony. Against all odds it flies. News reaches the West. American intelligence does not see the Tu-95 that day, but they hear whispers. Unconfirmed reports. A new Soviet bomber. Unusual engine noise. Extreme range. At first, analysts are skeptical. Propellers? In the 1950s? Impossible. But then radar stations in the Arctic begin detecting unfamiliar tracks. Long range. Persistent. By 1954, NATO gives it a name. Umber. And the fear becomes real. A strategic shock. When U.S. analysts finally piece together the truth, the implications are chilling. The Tu-95 can reach Alaska, Canada, the continental United States without refueling. It can loiter, probe, return. And unlike missiles, it can be recalled. It is a manned reminder, a flying question mark, circling the edges of American airspace. Every flight forces a response. Every response reveals weaknesses. This is not just a bomber. It is a psychological weapon. Training the crews. Back in the Soviet Union, pilots are trained relentlessly. Long missions over empty tundra. Navigation by stars. Dead reckoning over featureless ice. Mistakes are unforgiving. Crews learn to fly for 12, 14, even 18 hours at a time. They memorize emergency procedures, engine failures, icing conditions, decompression drills. Colonel Voronin is among the best. Chosen not for aggression, but discipline. He understands the mission. Do not provoke. Do not cross the line, but never turn away too soon. De Pekahers Darnworm. The Cold War takes to the air. By the late 1950s, Tu-95 patrols become routine. To Soviet command, they are defensive reconnaissance. To the United States, they are something else entirely. A reminder that distance no longer guarantees safety, that oceans are no longer barriers, that the next war, if it comes, will arrive from above, with engines roaring long before impact. And every time a radar blip appears from the north, American crews remember one thing. This aircraft should not exist, and yet it does. We're in Section 3, The Bear at the Gates, March 16, 1958. Chukotka Peninsula, Soviet Far East. 21-3 hours. Snow sweeps sideways across the runway, driven by relentless Arctic winds. The sun has long vanished beyond the horizon, leaving only a dim twilight that blurs sky and ground into a single shade of gray. A line of Tu-95 bombers waits in silence. Their shapes are unmistakable. Long wings stretching wide, propeller blades motionless for now, noses pointed eastward toward open ocean. Inside one of them, Colonel Sergei Mikhailovich Voronin adjusts his headset as ground power is disconnected. The cockpit vibrates slightly as the first engine begins to turn, then another and another. Soon, the night is filled with that sound again. The deep, hammering thunder that will soon earn the Tu-95 a reputation heard long before it is seen. Nanofur Kilbernonen. Orders without words. There is no speech, no dramatic send-off. Voronin does not need one. The mission briefing earlier was concise, clinical, almost emotionless. Proceed along assigned polar route. Maintain international airspace. Observe reactions. Return. Everyone in the room understood what was left unsaid. This flight is a test, not of weapons, but of nerves. Merver Horse, into the polar void. The Tu-95 lifts into the darkness, climbing steadily as the coastline fades behind it. Below, the frozen Bering Sea stretches endlessly, cracked ice reflecting faint starlight. Navigation over the Arctic is unforgiving. There are no landmarks, no cities, no lights, only instruments, stars, and trust. The navigator plots their course with meticulous care, checking drift, wind correction, and fuel consumption. Every calculation matters. A mistake here does not mean turning around. It means disappearing. Kyakarora. The first detection, Clear Air Force Station, Alaska. 23:41 hours. The radar operator freezes. A return appears far to the west. Faint but persistent. He adjusts the scope. The contact sharpens. Range increasing, speed steady, altitude high. This is no civilian aircraft. Within minutes, the duty officer is alerted. Then NORAD. Then the interceptor squadrons. The familiar phrase echoes through the base. Unknown aircraft approaching U.S. Air Defense Identification Zone. The Cold War hums quietly into motion. American response. At Elmendorf Air Force Base, klaxons scream to life. Pilots bolt from ready rooms, adrenaline cutting through fatigue. Lieutenant Thomas Keller, F-102 pilot, straps in as ground crew pull away ladders and disconnect cables. Target is inbound from the northwest. The controller's voice crackles. Likely Soviet bomber. Keller swallows. He's trained for this, simulated it dozens of times. But simulations don't carry consequences. The F-102 surges down the runway and climbs hard into the black sky. Rurburer, contact. High above the clouds, Voronin feels it before he sees it. A subtle shift in the air, a flicker on the radar warning receiver. Then a shape appears off the wing. Sharp, angular, fast. An American interceptor. The Tu-95 holds course. It does not dive. It does not turn. It flies on, massive, unyielding, confident. Inside the American cockpit, Keller stares. Propellers, 8 of them, spinning with impossible speed. This thing's not supposed to be here, he mutters. He radios confirmation. Photographs are taken, data recorded, every second logged. The Soviet bomber does nothing provocative. That somehow makes it worse. Derby, learning each other. For nearly 20 minutes, the two aircraft fly parallel paths. Close enough to see markings, far enough to avoid collision. This is not combat. This is study. The Americans note speed, altitude, engine configuration. The Soviets note response time, aircraft type, intercept profile. Both sides are learning. Neither side trusts the other. And both know that next time, the bomber might not be empty. Dervisher, turning away. Fuel calculations run their course. Voronin checks his watch, nods once. The Tu-95 banks gently northward, engines maintaining their relentless rhythm. The interceptor follows for a short distance, then peels away. The sky grows quiet again, but the data gathered tonight will ripple outward into briefing rooms, design bureaus, strategy documents. This encounter will shape doctrine. The pattern emerges. Flights like this become routine. Near Alaska, near Iceland, near Britain, near Japan. Always legal, always deliberate. The Tu-95 becomes a constant presence. A reminder that the Soviet Union can reach across oceans at will. For American crews, sleep comes lightly. For planners, assumptions begin to crumble. Radar coverage is expanded. Interceptors upgraded. Missiles prioritized. The bomber has done its job, without dropping a single weapon. The fear takes root. By the end of the 1950s, one truth is undeniable. The Tu-95 is not obsolete. It is not transitional. It is not a stopgap. It is a cornerstone of Soviet strategy. A flying message that says, "We can reach you. We are watching. And we will come again." And every time its engines echo across the Arctic night, America listens. Because the sound is no longer unfamiliar. It is expected. And expectation in the Cold War is its own kind of terror.